What's going on, everyone? It's Mike back again, and I'm really chuffed to have these guys on. The podcast is a phenomenal listen. They've had some fantastic people on, and I've got one of the. Is it fair to say hosts? Is it presenters? What do you guys call yourselves?
Yeah, mate, I'll take host all day. I'll take a number of things. I'll take one of the Evertonians, one of the hosts, one of the six scousers on there. It's a pleasure to be on tonight, Mike. Thanks for the kind invite. Looking forward to talking to you. But our podcast is Three Reds and Three Blues. We get together every week and talk about Liverpool Football Club, Everton Football Club. We have banter and debate, and we've got lots of extras. We have loads of interviews as well on the website as well. But no, very kind invite. I'm looking forward to speaking to you about all things Everton tonight.
Yeah, brilliant. And guys, just so you know, so Across the Park, they've got their own website, which again, it's got links to everything that they do on there. You can literally Google Across the Park podcast and you will find them. It's a piece of cake. Great bunch of guys, and I listened to the podcast last season about the derby, and he got not a bit heated, but he got, you can see that there's a Merseyside derby going to happen.
Yeah, do you know what? It's one of those things, you know yourself, Mike, being an Evertonian, even not from the city, we're unique in the fact that we have Reds and Blues in our families and our workplaces. So we're very unique in the fact that we're different from other derbies. You don't find a Manchester City United podcast, a Rangers Celtic podcast, Newcastle Sunderland. I could go on. This city and these two fan bases are very unique. So when we get together, it's like talking to your best mate or your brother. You might say things that you don't mean, and you'll say sorry and go for a pint after it, and that's all good nature, and that's what we're all about.
Yeah, exactly, and it does come across. So, yeah, I mean, it's brilliant having you on. Obviously, it was suggested on my Instagram to get to ask you guys and approach you guys to come on. Personally, for me at the minute, my channel's flying, and I know, for example, your monthly listeners are absolutely through the roof at the minute. So it sounds like we're both doing good things. About the Everton Liverpool, the working relationship, does it ever get awkward?
Yeah, of course. I mean, our podcast started by a conversation in the pub. I went there. It was one of the Blues judgy, and he was with the Three Reds, and they were talking about, this is 2 years ago now, talking about who was the better right back. It was Seamus Coleman versus Trent Alexander-Arnold, and apparently I weren't there, like I said, but the pub got involved in the conversation, and it just became one of those things where we thought, this is every day for us in this city, and we always have this back and forth with Reds and Blues, and why not put it online and let's get some interaction. Let's see what we can do. We've been very fortunate in some of the guests that we've had, both Reds and Blues. We're very fortunate that we've had great feedback on our social media, and people seem to have grasped onto it. We've been really lucky, but like I said, there was a market for it. There's amazing Everton channels such as yourself. I'm a subscriber and I enjoy your work. There's numerous other channels on the Red side as well, but we noticed that there was not much of an Everton and Liverpool sort of a room for a debate and get involved. And sometimes we publish our shows and we'll get tweets that are irate in caps lock, and we'll get other tweets that are praising either side for putting it to the other.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. I think with football, especially in this day and age now, it's the most important of the unimportant things in life. And why not have some fun with it? Why not get together and have some debate and have some banter? And that's what we're all about.
Yeah, and it takes it back to, is it fair to call you Millsy? What do you go by on the?
Yeah, no, yeah. My name's Ian. But yeah, you call me Millsy on the podcast. My name is Ian Mills. But yeah, you can call me Ian or Millsy. That's fine.
Yeah. So for me, I think some of the work that you and Judgy do, and it's obviously it's been a difficult. Yesterday especially was a difficult day for Everton. Obviously, it was 13 years since Reece Jones passing away, and a lot of the time there is not a pure hatred between Everton and Liverpool, but there's a common hatred. But actually, Everton and Liverpool, they've come together for big moments in our history. We're very much as much as we can say that we despise Liverpool, and we all have feelings towards Liverpool and how they celebrated winning the league, etc., etc. There is a common respect when it comes to shit situations that affect the city, and that is what is unique about the Everton-Liverpool relationship. There is a hatred there. There's no getting around it. but there's also a common respect. And actually, I think both clubs would suffer if neither was there.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned there that the Reece Jones, we put something on our social media yesterday about Reece Jones, and in particular the video of Liverpool Football Club playing Z cars at Anfield. And again, I go back to what I said previously. I can't see any other city doing that, and that's not me digging other cities out. That's just me being proud of where I'm from and the two clubs in the city. I'm a massive Evertonian. Do I like Liverpool Football Club? Of course not. My curtains were drawn when there were fireworks going off. The other month. I didn't like that one bit. But again, it's such a unique relationship between the two sides. And you mentioned there the Reece Jones things, and you're spot on. When tragedies do happen, the Hillsborough thing, the Blues have done it themselves with the justice when the families of the Hillsborough, finally got justice. I remember the Bournemouth game at home in 2016, and we had the big justice for our brothers, and the Hillsborough families, who were predominantly Reds, came onto the pitch at Goodison Park. And it's so special. And from my point of view, my dad took me to a derby in 1994 in the Gladys Street. It used to be it was called the Gladys Street Terrace, and there was Liverpool fans there. And my dad was shaking their hands after the game. We were walking home to the chippy, and I've been brought up on that sort of relationship. And from our podcast point of view, we feel a little bit like maybe it's our generation that have changed that, and we don't really know why. But let's put it out there that it's a game of football. At the end of the day, it's no point being losing friends over and being, you see horror scenes in different countries. They take it so personally, and there's graphic scenes of things. That's not what we're about. We're about just all being friends, supporting two great football clubs. My football club is, of course, the better of the two. No one can tell me otherwise. I'll argue every week on my podcast that's the case. But like you said, it's all about just producing great content and being friends at the end of the day and having some fun.
Yeah, exactly. And you're spot on. And let's just quickly move into Everton then. So obviously, last season was not what I think any of us wanted. I think there was we come in from the back of the season before, and I think we lost 3 games in 13. We was unlucky not to beat Spurs on the last day of the season, getting a 2-2 draw. We went into that season, and look, from my perspective, and I'm pretty sure you heard it at the time, because actually I'm pretty sure you guys actually responded to me saying about my opinion being fair and understanding my opinion, but a lot of people didn't agree with my opinion, and I essentially said that I felt that Marcel Brands had let Marco Silva down to a degree. He didn't get the signings in early that he wanted. He obviously put his hat on Zuma and never got him. We lost Ladrissa Garnagay, and fundamentally he was replaced with Gabarmin, which has obviously been a horror story in terms of his injuries, and we do wish him the best. But what really went wrong last season?
You've got to go back to the transfer window. You mentioned Marcel Brands there. Now, Marcel Brands has got a very, very difficult job on his hands, especially with the FFP. I think we're flying very, very close to where we shouldn't be, basically. And he's came in. Our real crack at this was 2017. It was that summer. We messed up completely, and we're still feeling it now.
Yeah.
That 2016-17 Everton team had the room to go to big wages and attract big players, and it was messed up. So Brands came in. What I will agree with is, I've heard you on your channel say this, and I agree completely that Marco Silva was let down last season. He obviously identified a few players. I think Tomori was one. I think Wilfried Zaha was one.
Yeah.
And Kurt Zuma was one. So those 3 players we chased for a number of weeks and didn't get any of them. At what point is the line? At what point should someone then say, this is not working, we need to go to option B, option C, option D? We obviously did go to option B with Alex Iwobi on the final day, and I think we tried to sign Marcus Rojo from Manchester United as well. But it was such an unprofessional approach to such a big window, because at the end of last season, the 18-19 season, you sort of seen those foundations there that you could just add a couple of things into it, and we would have progressed on. So you can't look at last season's sort of disappointment without going to the transfer window. Now, it's strange to say that, because that has led us into having Carlo Ancelotti. And had we got the window right, then we wouldn't be in a situation now where we've got such a great world-class manager, which everyone's excited about. So it feels strange to say that was the catalyst of our downfall, but I just think going into last season, I didn't feel that things were right. We were looking at Yerry Mina and Michael Keane, and I think, I mean, I don't want to speak for every Evertonian, but I think unanimously we were quite worried by that. We were worried by Mason Holgate being the backup who'd spent the second half of that season as a right back at West Brom.
Yeah.
We thought we were short. We hadn't yet seen Dominic Calvert-Lewin scoring regular goals in the Premier League. We didn't know whether he could do it. We'd signed an unproven striker in Moise Keane, who we didn't know anything about other than what people were saying. We'd lost a Drissagana guy, and again, I'm going back to that transfer window. It was the first domino there that sort of stretched it, and then we had such a poor start. I think we lost to Aston Villa and Bournemouth and Sheffield United, and all of a sudden, you know, you had not been ready for the season, with the team being low on confidence at that point, then, and then the fans seeing that the team are low on confidence. And you know yourself, Mike, we're a passionate bunch. We're not going to allow, you know, the team not to perform, and then that happens at Goodison, and that gets highlighted then, and we get criticised as fans, and it was just it was just an absolute mess. And you go to December, and Duncan Ferguson came in, and that was just something you may agree, Mike, that was something that we absolutely needed.
Absolutely. I think Duncan Ferguson, you know, he may not be tactically ready. He may not be a Premier League manager hardened, you know, ready to take the helm, etc. But what he did was bring in fight. You know, he brought in the dogs of war mentality that we had in the early 90s. Now, you know, I'm 28, so I was born in 92, so I didn't see, you know, or remember much of the dogs of war, and I certainly didn't see the successful days of the 80s. But what I did see is when Duncan come out, it was his passion, you know, standing there in the rain with just his shirt on, you know, picking up ball boys when we score 3 goals against Chelsea. And, you know, for someone who doesn't live in the city, for example, but every family connection that I have is in Liverpool or around Liverpool, it was abundantly obvious, because I was hearing from Liverpool fans where there is a lot more Liverpool fans in Birmingham, for example, and they're all saying you're just shit. There's nothing about Everton.
Shock, isn't it? There's a shock. Liverpool fan in Birmingham. There's a shock.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's loads of them. It's Birmingham, London, and Norway. But you know, it was tragic that it was just constant. You know, not abuse. It's just banter. But you're constantly hearing you're shit. And it's almost getting to the point where it's really difficult to defend it, because we didn't have any mentality of battling. We didn't have that mentality of I would look at the Everton team, and certainly with Marco Silva at the end, because I certainly believe that he tried to play his way out in the end. I think he gave up, and I thought that at the Norwich game where we lost 2-0, because some of his substitutions that day were horrific. I actually sat there and went, the players aren't playing for the manager. The manager isn't managing for the club, and the board, in my opinion, have let the manager down. Where the hell do we start from here? And Duncan coming in was massively pivotal to just giving us a little bit of a semblance of order, you know, a little bit of identity.
But do you know what, as well, Mike, he deserves credit, because he had a daunting fixture list. He had Chelsea, Manchester United. He had a quarter-final against Leicester. Then he had Arsenal. Now, we went out the cup, unfortunately, on penalties, but if he did not beat Chelsea, if he did not got results against Arsenal and Manchester United, Carlo Ancelotti would not have came in. We were looking at David Moyes. So that spell there was so crucial that he came in. And fair play to him, because he could have rocked the boat there and said, well, I need more time. And all his press after it and during his caretaker spell was saying he wants the best for Everton Football Club. And he deserves so much credit for me for that spell, because we could have been looking at, like I said, David Moyes now.
He actually deserves a lot more credit than people give him. Actually, I think he's spot on. So obviously we've got Carlo Ancelotti, and we come into this summer. You've touched on it already. We are really close to FFP limits. I think if it weren't for the fact that we've got probably a very decent accountant, I actually think we're soaring over it, because when I've done my own calculations, we are I think we're about £40 million in the red in terms of FFP because of the wages that we pay out and we continue to pay out. How do we fix that this summer? Because, you know, Ancelotti hasn't come here to get a squad of players and not be able to bring in any players. So what do we do?
It's an impossible question to answer. And on our podcast, we get listeners. We do a social media section, as you know, and we get listeners asking us, you know, why can't we just get rid of players? I mean, if you were a football manager of a different club, would you buy Mo Besic? Would you buy Yannick Bolasie? Would you buy Cenk Tosun? We're on a thankless task here. We're looking at having to shift players out on loan. Unfortunately, I was reading online that Sandro isn't even part of it at the minute because he's came back from Spain and he's got to do I think a quarantine.
Yeah.
But then there's another name. Who's going to buy Sandro? Who's going to loan Sandro? He's been to Spain for the past 2 seasons and been sent back. The team who loaned him for free have not wanted to buy him for what would be 5 million. We'd take 5 million for him. I'm sure we would. Yannick Bolasie, would we take 2 million? I'm sure we would. Would we take $500,000 for Mo Besic? I'm sure we would.
Yeah.
But teams are not buying these players for the simple reason that they're not very good. And we go back to that summer 2017, where a lot of players who are not very good came in on big wages. Yeah. And how do you shift them? Because they're very publicly flopping. They're not doing very well in the public eye. So who goes for them? I'm really nervous that we're going to reach a point where we have to sell someone now.
Yeah.
Whether that be Luca Dean, whether that be, you know, heaven forbid, Richarlison, or whether they then say, can we move the goalkeeper on? Can he bring 20 million in and we'll bring someone in for a short spell? But I think we're at a point now where we may need to look at alternatives to bring money in because we obviously haven't got it. I'm reading that we're dilly-daddling over the Allen deal with Napoli. We're trying to put clauses in, and if we win this, if we do that, they're very much, no, here's the price. And it would be proper Everton for someone to come in and take him, similar to the Gabriel magalhaes deal with Arsenal. We had him in Finch Farm in February, you know, doing press-ups, doing his medical, and now he's signing for Arsenal. So I think it's very, very, we're at a fine line, especially with the manager as well. I think if we lose, we've lost Højbjerg, we've lost Gabriel magalhaes. I think if we don't get the Allen deal over the line, I don't see Carlo Ancelotti being very, very happy with that. And then that worries me. I don't know the answer, Mike. I really don't. I wish Usmanov could come in and sponsor some more steps or some more brinks or something and do something about it. But I don't know the answer. But I'm looking at this summer and I'm terrified. Even just watching the game against Blackpool yesterday, those players for me, some of those players I've got no time for at all. I've never felt so disconnected with some of those players. If someone asked me, I've got a young nephew who's only 11, and he asked me the typical question as 11-year-old does: who's your favourite player, Ian? I couldn't tell you. Probably Richarlison, but even then I don't know. I haven't got anyone that I think he's Everton. We've lost Leighton Baines. Seamus Coleman is obviously slowly on his way out. Yeah. There's no one on that pitch who I think we've got him. At least he's the man. And I mean, look at last season. This sums it up for me. When Morgan Schneiderlin was fit, he played. How bad must some of those players be that Morgan Schneiderlin, who walked around the pitch for 3 years not caring, gets in?
Yeah, and that is also moving on a little bit, but we'll go back to it. That is a little bit of a concern I've got for Andre Gomes because I think he does care at the minute, but I do worry that he could be another Morgan Schneiderlin because of what he's playing with, you know. And going back to it, obviously you're spot on, and I cannot agree anymore with the simple fact is I used to be able to say to, you know, my missus or my dad or, you know, anyone, any Everton fan, anyone in Birmingham, they'd say, what's your favourite player, or you know, who is Mr. Everton to you? And I could say numerous players. I could have said, at one point, Mikel Arteta. I could have said Tim Cahill. I could have even, at one point, crazily enough, said Phil Neville because, you know, when he flew into that tackle with Ronaldo, I thought, well, he clearly gets what Everton are all about. Not that he was a great footballer, but, you know, he put his heart on his sleeve.
He cared. He cared.
Yeah. Thomas Gravesen. I literally can go through a whole list and I look at the identity of that team now, and I did mention this before Baines retired on the Bournemouth watch along. losing Baines was literally the last person that I would have literally done anything to keep Baines. I would have offered him anything. You know, I know it weren't about money, but I would have offered him the absolute world. And this is why it's pivotal that Baines. I know that the Echo come out and said that Everton are working on something to keep him at the club. It's important that they do, because it's fine having talented players, Luca Dean, Richarlison, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, although, you know, I'm quite a harsh critic of players. Dominic Calvert-Lewin still got to do more for me. He had a good half a season. We had him for 3 years before that and he did nothing. So I want to see him have another good season this season. I want to see him carry that on. But it does concern me that there is nobody that I can sit there and go, yeah, I can rely on him to give me a 7 out of 10 every week. And even the ones that are Everton through and through, your John Joe Kennys, your Tom Davises, they're not good enough. You know, and it's that simple. You know, a lot of people raved about Tom for a few years. When he was 15, I think it was, or 16, he was training with the England first team because he was selected out of the England under-18s because of how good he was. Yeah, he's certainly not stepped up. And when I look at the nucleus of that 16-17 team with players like Lukaku, Ross Barkley, who could at least carry the ball, you know, forward from the centre of the park, pace on the wings with players like Magalhaes, and obviously with several players like Delafeu, or, you know, players who were prepared to get on the ball and do things. I look at that entire Everton team and I see a load of sheeps at times who just want to follow someone else, and that man is usually Richarlison. And again, Richarlison's an exceptionally gifted footballer who fortunately enough has turned himself into probably a striker rather than a winger. But as a winger, he wasn't great at beating people. He hasn't really got that skill to just skin someone on the spot. He's not a winger. He always was a striker, and that's where I just think Everton lack everything. If you take Luca Dean, Mason Holgate and Richarlison out of that Everton team, I actually think we could go down.
Yeah, well, I made a point on our podcast saying, like, thank God that we're not that bad, because if we were, can you imagine relying on that gang of players to win a game to keep you up? Can you imagine going into a Wimbledon or a Coventry in 94 or 98? They wouldn't be able to do it. No. They've got no... What you're saying there, I completely agree with, Mike. I mean, it's character. Some of the players you've mentioned there, Phil Neville, Mikel Arteta, Tim Cahill, and I'll say some more, Julian Lescott, Andy Johnson, even James Beattie. They came in as hungry players who wanted to win things. Are you telling me that some of our signings that we've made in the past few years are hungry players who want to win things? No. Is Fabian Delph hungry to win things? No. I don't think so. I'm a fan of this player, but is Bernard hungry to win things? I don't know. I think Richarlison is. I think Luca Dean is. I'm not too sure whether Andre Gomez is either. I mean, I don't think Kurt Zuma was when he left Chelsea, because he'd been to Stoke the year before. Yeah. I don't see a hungry player wanting to win things. So I think we're bringing in the wrong characters. I think we're looking at players in black and white and stats. Yeah. I'm saying, he fits a box. That scout says he's good. Let's bring him in. But the character's all wrong. You see, when we go 1-0 down, and our midfielders are pointing to give it to someone else at 1-0 down. Yeah. Should you not be taking especially with the armbands on, should you not be taking the ball and taking and at least trying something? If you're trying something and it didn't come off, fine. But if you're pointing to the centre half and saying, I don't want it, what sort of character is that? And players like that are wearing the armbands for Everton Football Club. It's nowhere near good enough. And I'm not talking ability-wise, I'm talking character-wise. It's nowhere near good enough.
Yeah, I had an argument last year about Alex Iwobi, actually, because I said it was typical Everton that on the last day of the season we get linked with either Zuma, Tomori, Decore and Zaha, and we bring in Iwobi, who, quite honestly, he was awful at Arsenal. I didn't rate him then. He scored 3 goals in 10 goals in 3 years, or whatever it was, and I had an argument with El Pivito. Now, I don't speak to El Pivito anymore on Twitter, and it's not because of, there's nothing there anymore. There's no animosity. He's a man that goes by stats, and he was incredibly excited by the Iwobi signing. And I remember saying, I just question the mentality of going and signing players who sit on the bench at these teams that are so-called top 4, top 6 teams. Why are they good enough to get into Everton when that's where Everton aspire to be? And another analogy I used to use is, if you want to be the best, you've got to go and get the best, and that's why it was important to bring in a top-class manager, and we never did. Moshiri never did. He never brought in a top-class manager. He brought in Koeman, who had a decent year at Southampton and a bit of experience at PSV, but it was never top level. He then obviously didn't do a great job. Sam Allardyce come in, and look, Sam Allardyce gets a lot of criticism, and I'm certainly not his biggest fan, but with what the squad had with no pace, he did miracles to get us to 8th. And, I don't like him and I'm not going to bless him, but he did do a good job to get us to there.
I agree.
And then we bring in Marco Silva, who fundamentally had just been the Hull manager. Yes, they played decent football, but they went down. And it was just no ambition for me with the money that they were spending on trying to get in a lot of these players. So, talking about this summer then, and this is really the last point for the video, really. We've been linked with Tomori. I don't know if you've seen it, but apparently Everton, according to the Telegraph, which I always go by the Telegraph personally, I always think that's a decent source. Yeah. Apparently Everton are interested in loaning Tomori from Chelsea, 22-year-old centre-back, commanding, quick on his feet. I think he can pass as well, it'll be a loan move. Is that what Everton need? What do Everton need in this summer?
Well,
FFP aside, what do we need?
Well, the Tomori deal, if that's true, that's the first I've heard of it. But the Telegraph, like you said, are a really good source. That's a short-term move. That's a plan B move. That's the Gabriel Magalhaes hasn't happened. What's next on the list? And whereas he may not be the greatest player, I applaud the fact that if we're going to bring someone in this quickly based on plan A not working, which is what we never done last summer, I applaud that. Whether he can forge any sort of partnership with one of our centre-halves, I don't know. I still don't know who our best centre-half is. I know a lot of supporters, me included, were impressed by Mason Holgate last summer. I still think there's holes in his game. Yeah. I think he can switch off. I think he can lose a man very easily. But he's young in a centre-half, in a centre-half's world. He's got years to go. He's going to play till he's 36, 37. I was quite excited. I was probably one of the only Blues who was excited by the Thiago Silva.
Yeah, well, I was as well.
I thought if he came in and just his presence around Winch Farm, and you might get 15, 16, 17 games out of him, but I think he knows how to organise a back line. I think he knows how to tell someone where to be and when, and sort of help your likes of Mason Holgate and probably even help Yerry Mina and Michael Keane, who at times I've looked at those and thought, are they really good centre-halves? I don't know. I'd love to be able to be now in 2017 and have that ambition and have the checkbook to follow through that ambition, because there was 2 weeks there where we were just bringing players in non-stop. Yeah. And you were looking at the Ajax captain coming in, the very highly rated Jordan Pickford, the very highly rated Michael Keane, Wayne Rooney coming back. We were throwing massive money at Gylfi Sigurdsson. Yeah. We were signing Sandro, and you think now this is what we probably need to be doing now. We need to be identifying, team's best players and not spending on those players because they haven't been very good. But you need now to be able to have that kitty and say where we are now with this manager and this backing and this ownership with the new stadium on the horizon. You need that sort of kitty, and you need to be able to go and to bring a goalkeeper in, bring a centre half in, bring a right back in, bring a central midfielder in, and bring a forward in.
Yeah, I
don't think we can do it in this window, and whether Carlo Ancelotti was told that in advance, I don't know. I'd like to think that he does know that that's the scenario, and we're not going to risk going back on our ways, because that would probably be not only the most Everton thing ever, but it'd be the worst case scenario for us to go back on our way and risk losing Carlo Ancelotti. I mean, looking at our team yesterday, Mike, at the Blackpool game, I was out and I just looked on Twitter and I seen the starting 11, and I just thought, we cannot go into the season with these players. And 10 minutes later, my wife said to me, what score is it? I said 3-0 Blackpool. And she went, no, really, what score is it? And I said, it's 3-0 Blackpool. And we cannot go into the season with these players. No. We cannot. But if Alan comes in now, I don't watch a lot of Italian football. I'm not gonna lie. But what I'm reading about him is he's aggressive and he goes box to box. Yeah. He can pass the ball, and he's also got good stats in relation to goals and assists. That, to me, just looking at that, makes him our best midfielder straight away, because none of our midfielders can do that. Andre Gomez can play in a 3.
Yeah.
I'm not confident in him playing in a 2. I've never seen John-Philip Gbamin other than 60 minutes at Goodison and 60 minutes at Crystal Palace, and I can't judge anyone on that.
No.
I don't want Fabian Delph to play for Everton Football Club again. I think his attitude stinks.
Yeah.
I think to play for Everton Football Club, you need to be a certain character. To play for any club in this city, you need to be a certain character.
Yeah.
And he hasn't got it. Some of the nerve he had in responding to our fans on social media, I mean, that's shown me that he does not get what it means to be in this city or play for Everton Football Club. Tom Davies, now it hurts me to say this because, like you said correctly, Mike, before he was training with England in 2015, he was identified as a prospect, and he came through in the 16-17 season and played really well.
Yeah.
He has not progressed, and you cannot put someone in a Premier League team in a 4-4-2 who doesn't know at times where to be, where to stand, what to do. And when I look at Tom Davies playing football, I think it screams to me he doesn't know what to do when he has the ball. He's looking around. It's not instinctive. I think good players instinctively can do things and move your team forward up the pitch. For all the grief Ross Barkley got, that was one of his best attributes. He could get the ball, instinctively turn, and we were up the pitch. We miss a player like that. There's so many holes and so many black spots in that team that if you give me, a genie in a bottle now, I'd probably bring 6 or 7 in, Michael, to be honest, if I could. There's a lot of players, not only statistically, but like I said before, the character. It's just, I don't relate. For probably the first time, I'm 35, and even though I've seen really bad Everton teams, I've always thought we had something, and this is probably the first time I in my life I don't feel we have a lot, and there's an awful lot for me to do.
Yeah, agreed, absolutely. I mean, that is to sum up Everton, it's absolutely spot on. For me, just putting it out there, I actually give, I think the right back will be a loan. I think a centre back will be a loan. I think I can't see us signing both Alan and Decore. As much as it would be nice, I think we're only going to get one, and I suspect it will be Alan. And I do think we'll get a winger, but I think there's a lot of fans that are very optimistic, in me included. I sat there and I thought, maybe we will go and get Wilfried Zaha, but actually the more you look at Everton, the more you think we could really struggle financially, and this window, this year, I think will be a case of trying not to spend lots of money and try and get some of these players that are on massive wages out of the club. And you spot on with what you say about taking small fees. And it annoys me, players like Mohamed Besic, he almost got sold last summer for £5 million.
Yeah.
And this year, and you're right in saying it, he didn't pull up any trees at Sheffield United. I mean, this is how bad Mo Besic is. Jack Rodwell has just been given an extended deal at Sheffield United, but they don't want to sign Mohamed Besic for. I mean, Everton would probably take £1 million. You said $500,000. Just get him off the book. So you are spot on in what you say. So finishing on that, then, we both think it could be quite a dodgy season. Where do you think we're going to finish?
Look, I'm an Evertonian, and every summer I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic for change. I'm even more so optimistic now. This may seem like a bit of a, the voice of doom video, which I didn't want it to be. But we've got there's good things in place there. We've got a billionaire owner who we all know is being backed by another billionaire owner. Yeah. So we've got a stadium on the horizon. We've got Carlo Ancelotti as the manager. The team at the moment are not fit to wear the shirt, half of them. I'd probably say there's 3 or 4 who are. So there's lots of work to be done.
Yeah.
But with that sort of foundation in place, with a billionaire owner and Carlo Ancelotti in place, you can see brighter days on the horizon. It might not be this summer and it might not be this season, but as long as we keep, Farhad Moshiri invested and we keep Carlo Ancelotti or the likes of Carlo Ancelotti at the football club, then eventually it's got to get better. It's the rule of thumb. It's got to. For this season, I think it all depends on the window. We've got to bring in, by hook or crook, we've got to bring players in, and I don't know how we'll do it, but we've got to. I think Alan it's looking like that will happen. That will be huge. Just have a midfielder who can not only win the ball, but he can do something with it.
Yeah.
And if you can get someone next to him as well, I think automatically you're a far better team, because Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's not prolific, but he's at least shown last season he can score goals in the Premier League. So you've got a number 9 who can score goals. You've got Charlison, who's, unfortunately, he's going to leave Everton one day and go on to bigger and better things. He is that good.
Yeah.
You've got a great left back. You've got the basis is there. You've just got to add little things to it. Like I said, I don't know, Mike, whether it can be this summer, but hopefully, I'm touch words. Hopefully, we can do something and go into that first game at Tottenham with 2 or 3 new players at the very least. If we don't, then it's going to be really tough to improve on what we did last season, which is not good enough, and it's mid-table at best. But yeah, like I said, let's hope that Marcel Brands and Carlo Ancelotti can do something this summer, because that team's crying out for it.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Ian, it's been an absolute pleasure, and just to finish on that, I agree. I think if Everton don't do anything this summer, or do not enough, I think it'll be a very similar season to last season. I think if Everton get the recruitment right, I do think Everton can push for, say, 7th place and maybe a spot in Europe. But the teams we're taking on are Wolves and Leicester, in my opinion, for that.
Well, look at last season, Mike. I mean, there's games at Newcastle, there's games at home to Leicester, where Carlo Ancelotti's shown exactly what he was about, where we were holding on to leads, and the team were rolling the dice, the opposition, and he was countering them. So you've got such a brilliant manager there who can do that.
Yeah.
Now let's just somehow, by hook or crook, give him the tools to succeed.
Spot on. Ian, thank you ever so much, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'm more than, we were talking off air, but I'm more than happy to come on with you guys, literally anytime.
Yeah, open invite. You're more than welcome. I'm a big fan of your channel. I subscribe, and you've done some great work. It's been an absolute pleasure. Very kind to ask me on. Thank you very much.
Nah, thank you ever so much, mate. And guys, the links are literally in the description below. Obviously, the links are on Twitter. This video, you'll already know this, but it'll be out on Monday night. So you've already watched it. You already know it's out on Monday night. But guys, thank you ever so much for watching. Ian, it's an absolute pleasure. And guys, I'll see you soon. Peace.